Welcome to Nazarene Israel. My name is Norman Willis, and in last week's presentation, we talked about the central, vital importance of learning to hear Yahweh's voice to every renewed covenant believer's walk. And one of the reasons it's so important to hear Yahweh's voice is that one of the very first things Yahweh commanded Israel to do upon leaving Egypt was to learn to obey his voice. And we certainly can't obey Yahweh's voice if we can't even hear it. And in this video presentation, we're also going to talk about the importance of hearing Yahweh's voice to the two different types of prophecy. And we're also going to see how, while one of these two types of prophecy is rare, the other one should be a daily part of every renewed covenant believer's walk. Prophecy is a gift that not everyone has, and yet we're all told to pursue it. For example, in 1 Corinthians, or Korinthim Aleph, chapter 14 and verse 1, the Apostle Shaul, or Paul, tells us to pursue love and to desire the spiritual gifts, but especially that we may prophesy. But how do we do that? Well, prophecy is something that we could perhaps all do if it weren't for the world getting in the way. 1 John, or Yohanan Aleph, chapter 2 and verse 16 tells us, "For all that is in the world is the lust of our flesh, the lust of our eyes, and our pride," or our egotism, and that these things are not of the Father Yahweh, but they're of the world. And so because they're of the world, they get in the way of our connection with Yahweh Elohim. For example, in Genesis chapter 3 and verse 6, "So when the woman, Hava, or Eve, symbolic of Israel, saw that the tree was good for food," that's the lust of the flesh, "and that it was pleasant to the eyes," that's the lust of the eyes, obviously, "and that it was a tree desirable to make one worldly wise," that's appealing to her egotism or her pride, "she took of its fruit and she ate." So what we see here is that because of her desires or her lusts, she stopped listening to Elohim's voice. And because she stopped listening to Elohim's voice, obviously, she stopped obeying Elohim's voice. And this breaks the connection between us and Elohim. And when that happens, prophesying then becomes impossible, because that's what prophecy is to hear Yahweh's voice and to speak according to it. So if we're supposed to desire to prophesy, let's find out more about what it is. So we look it up in Strong's Hebrew Concordance, and we see that it's Old Testament or Hebrew 50:12, Navah. It's a primitive root, and it means to prophesy, obviously. But what does that mean? Well, it means to speak or to sing by inspiration. And this is one of those mysteries that's hidden in plain sight. Inspiration, what it's talking about, is our breathing. So if we will focus on Yeshua, and Yeshua is in us and us in him, and him in the Father, and the Father is in him, then we have a restoration of that connection with Yahweh the Father that was lost and broken and severed in the Garden of Eden. So if we will maintain that connection, focusing on him and listening to him, and then we'll, through discipline, block out the lust of our eyes and the lusts of our flesh and our pride or our egotism, if we don't let those things interfere, then our connection with Yahweh is restored. We can hear his voice and we can speak according to it. Now, there's two different ways that prophecy can take place. One is in prediction, and that's a very special gift that comes from Yahweh. It can also take place in simple discourse. Most people don't know that, but that's a common gift that any one of us can have and can develop if we'll take the discipline to do it. Okay, what do we mean by that? Okay, let's take a look at this again. There's two different types of prophecy. The first type of prophecy is a special gift that Yahweh only gives when he's got a message to give to his people Israel. And that's called foretelling. That's what Strong's means when it's called prediction. We'll look at that in just a second. The second type of prophecy is the more common one. It's something that all of us could or should be practicing if we'll ask for the gift and if we'll take the discipline to do it. And that's called forthtelling, and Strong's calls it simple discourse. And we'll take a look at that also. But what simple discourse is, again, is when we focus on Yeshua, and Yeshua's in us and us in him, that deep abiding relationship, him and the Father in him, then again, that lost and severed connection to Yahweh is restored. So we listen for his voice, and then we simply speak according to it. And if we'll do that, of course, this particular type doesn't require predicting anything. We'll take a look at some examples in just a moment. But if we'll do that, if we'll stay connected with Yeshua and listen for Elohim's voice, we're going to find ourselves speaking forth the words of Yahweh's truth. We're going to find ourselves speaking of the things of his kingdom. We're going to look at that in just a second. But first, let's look at some examples of foretelling, or what Strong's calls prediction. Here's an example everyone knows in Yeshayahu, or Isaiah chapter 9 and verse 6, tells us, speaking of Yeshua, it says, "For unto us a child is born, and unto us a son is given, and the government will be upon his shoulder." And for those of you who doubt Yeshua's deity, it says, "And his name will be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty Elohim." You can't apply that title to a human. Everlasting Father. You can't apply that title to a human. Prince of Peace, or Field Marshal of Peace. It says, "And of the increase of his government and his shalom, there will be no end." And we're going to see that coming up. Now, for another example of foretelling or prediction, this is a special gift that comes only from Yahweh when he wants to give it. For example, in Daniel chapter 7, starting in verse 26, Daniel's speaking here about a character called the little horn. And we explained in the Nazarene Israel study, also in the study Revelation in the End Times, that we're speaking about the papacy here. We're talking about the time around trumpet 7, and it says, "But the heavenly court will be seated, and they shall take away the little horn's dominion to consume and destroy it forever. And then the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdoms under the whole heaven," now get this, it says, "shall be given to the people, the saints of the Most High." Now notice the paradox, notice the riddle here. It says, his kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him, even though the kingdom and dominion is given to the people, the saints of the Most High. And what we see happening here is this is when, as we explained in many other places, we explained it in the Revelation study and in other places, this is when the power will be taken from the papacy and it will be given to Nazarene Israel. And we will rule and reign as Yeshua's body with Yeshua's rod of iron, while Yeshua is our head in the heavenly realms. Okay, so those are our examples of prediction or foretelling. Now let's take a look at some examples of the second type of prophecy, which is more common, which each and every renewed covenant believer should be practicing, should be earnestly desiring to do. Okay, forthtelling. We're speaking forth the things of Elohim. We're speaking forth Yahweh's message. For example, in Shemot, or Exodus chapter 5 and verse 1, it says, "Afterward Moshe," or Moses, "and Aharon went in and told Paro, 'Thus says Yahweh, Elohim of Israel, let my people go, that they may hold a feast to me in the wilderness.'" Now, he's not predicting anything. He's not saying this will happen or that will happen. He's not saying that. He's just speaking the message that Elohim told him to give. He's hearing Yahweh's voice, and now he's speaking according to Yahweh's voice. That's simple discourse. For another example, in Yohanan, or John, chapter 4, starting in verse 17, Yeshua is speaking to the woman at the well. And the woman answered Yeshua and said to him, "I have no husband." So Yeshua said to her, "You have well said, I have no husband, for you have had 5 husbands, and the one whom you now have is not your husband. In that you spoke truly." And so the woman said to him, "Adoni," or master, "I perceive that you are a prophet." Now notice, he hasn't predicted anything. He hasn't said this is going to happen or that's going to happen. He's just simply spoken forth the truth which he heard from his father Yahweh. That's all he did. Another example of forthtelling, we're going to speak of the things of Elohim. For example, in Maaseh, or Acts chapter 1 and verse 3, the physician Luke tells us that Yeshua also presented himself alive after his suffering by many infallible proofs, being seen by them during 40 days, and speaking of the things pertaining to the kingdom of Elohim. So we know that Yeshua was in connection with his Father, and so he's simply speaking forth Yahweh's message. He's speaking of the things of the kingdom of Elohim. Now, this is what we also are commanded to do. We're going to see this as a special passage we're going to focus on later. It's called the fivefold ministry, or commonly called the fivefold ministry. Our commandment is to speak the truth, which comes from Elohim, in love, and Yahweh also is love. So notice, we're going to come back to this slide in just a moment, but let's take a look at this the first time. It says in Ephesians chapter 4, starting in verse 14, it says that we should no longer be spiritual children who are tossed to and fro and carried about with every wind of doctrine. Why? Because we're listening to men and not listening to Elohim. Therefore, we're fooled by the trickery of men and in the cunning craftiness of deceitful plotting. And this is talking about the messianic leaders and teachers. It's also talking about the messianic rabbis. What's the solution? It says, but speaking the truth in love. So we're disseminating the truth. We're sharing the truth which we hear from Yahweh. We may then as a body grow up in all things into him who is our head, Messiah Yeshua. Okay, now let's back up a little bit and get some context to this. Now what we're going to see, let's get a little bit deeper context and let's hit it again. What we're going to see is the gifts of apostles and prophets, by definition, have the gift of prophecy. The other giftings don't necessarily have it, but we're going to talk about that in just a bit. So Ephesians chapter 4, starting in verse 11. Again, this is the fivefold ministry. It's a very important passage everyone needs to understand. So it tells us that Yeshua himself gave some to be apostles and some to be prophets. Now, these are the two that take the lead because why? Because they're able to hear and speak according to Yahweh's voice. He also gave some to be evangelists and some to be pastors and teachers. Why did he do that? It's for the equipping of the saints for the work of ministry. So can we equip the saints for the work of ministry without this? No. Why did he do it? It's for the edifying of the body of Messiah. Can we truly edify the body of Messiah without this? No. How long is this supposed to last until? This order is supposed to last until we all come to the unity of the faith. Hasn't happened yet. And until we all come to the knowledge of the Son of Elohim. We're not there yet. It's supposed to last until we become to be perfect men, or we could say a perfect man, meaning a perfect body of Yeshua, perfect body of Messiah. That hasn't happened yet. So these gifts are still for today. It's supposed to last until we come to the measure of the stature of the fullness of Messiah. Again, it hasn't happened yet. And by the way, we talk about in the book Torah Government and also in the book Acts 15 Order, we explain why there's many more apostles in the renewed covenant than just 12. There's at least 22 that you can count them. If you'll read that study, you'll know why. Now let's come back, continue in verse 14, Ephesians 4 and verse 14. Why should we do this? Why are we bothering with the fivefold ministry? It's because we no longer shall be spiritual children. tossed to and fro and carried about with every wind of doctrine, by the trickery of men, and in the cunning craftiness of deceitful plotting. And again, this is speaking about the messianic leaders and teachers who are speaking messages that they understand with their intellect, but they're not teaching of the things of Elohim because they're not in connection with Yeshua. They're not hearing these messages and speaking them forth in true prophecy. Strong language, but it's true. So what's the solution? What's the antidote? It tells us that we should speak the truth in love. And that way we will grow up in all things, into him who is the head, Messiah. And the image here is if Yeshua's head is in the heavenly and we sort of have to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, so to speak. We must educate ourselves to grow up into our head so that we become worthy of our head, Yeshua Messiah. Now, here's the problem, and this is why it's so very difficult. In 1 Corinthians, or Quarantine Aleph, chapter 12, starting in verse 28, what we see is that not everyone has the gift of hearing Yahweh's voice. And the solution is that more of us need to obtain this gift, just like the Apostle Shaul counsels us to do in 1 Corinthians chapter 14 and verse 1. So it says, Elohim has appointed these in the assembly. First, apostles. Why? Because apostles both have the gift of hearing Yahweh's voice. They have the gift of prophecy. They can hear Yahweh's voice and speak according to it. They also have a gift for understanding the doctrine. Second, prophets. They don't necessarily have a gift for understanding the doctrine, but still they can hear Yahweh's voice and speak according to it. Third, teachers. They might have a gift for the doctrine, but they don't necessarily hear Yahweh's voice. And hearing Yahweh's voice is the more important thing because that's how we get to know what the doctrine is. And then after that, there's other gifts, miracles, gifts of healings, helps, administrations, and varieties of tongues. As we explain in another place, there's a variety of tongues, but at least one of the different types of speaking in tongues is when we hear Yahweh's voice, but we're not able to articulate it clearly. We talk about that in the study about speaking in tongues in Nazarene Scripture Studies, Volume 1. You can read it for free on the website. You can download a copy of the study for free, or you can purchase a paperback copy from Amazon.com at our cost. Now, here's where it gets difficult. Verse 29, Shaul asks the rhetorical question, are all apostles? Clearly not. Are all prophets? Clearly not. And this is part of the problem, is because the only ones who understand the importance of hearing and speaking according to Yahweh's voice are the ones who actually do it. And this is where the rest of the people get lost. Now, this is a gift that we're supposed to ask for. We're supposed to ask for the gifts of discernment. We're supposed to ask for the gift of prophecy. We're also supposed to ask for wisdom. And wisdom is a manifestation of the Spirit. So we ask for the gift of the Spirit, and we ask for Yahweh's help to help us manifest the Spirit. That's how we give a true testimony of Yeshua Messiah, is to manifest his Spirit. And this is something we can and should and need to ask for. So Yaakov, or James, chapter 1 and verse 5, we're told, if any of us lacks wisdom, we can ask of Elohim, and he will give to all of us liberally and without reproach. So we simply ask, seek, and knock, and it will be given to us. King Solomon asked for gifts. So in 1 Kings, or Melachim Aleph, chapter 3 and verse 11, Elohim said to King Solomon, because you didn't ask things for yourself. Now, check this out. This is so important. And this is, I think, if you want to take your faith to the next level, there's so many people, they ask gifts, they ask things for themselves. They want to ask understanding for themselves. They want to ask for a new car or a new house or more money or a better job, but they ask these things for themselves. And Yahweh might give us those things, but look at what King Solomon did. He asked for things so that he could serve Yahweh and his people. So Elohim said to him, because you have not asked these things for yourself, but because you've asked so that you can do your job serving my people better, I'm going to bless you like I have never blessed anyone before or since. He says, because you've asked for yourself understanding to discern justice. What is the job of a king? The job of a king is to establish justice among the people. So he's asking for discernment so he can establish justice, so he can do his job better. He says, behold, I will give you such that there has never been anyone like you before you, and there shall never be anyone to arise like you after you. And this is the thing that we all need to do when we want to serve him. So we don't ask gifts for ourselves. But how many times, I don't know if you're a parent or not, but if you can imagine when your children come to you and they say, Dad, can I have something for me? Dad, can I have something else for me? Mom, can I have something for me? Mom, can I have money for this? Dad, can I have money for that? Can I have the car keys, please? And then how does it feel to you when your child comes to you and says, Mom, Dad, how can I help you? You do everything for me. You provide for me. You give for me. You do all these things for me. What can I do for you? How can I make your life better? Don't you know that the child really loves you then? And doesn't it change your attitude toward that child? Doesn't it give you a new, fresh perspective on your child when they approach and ask, what can they do for you? Now let's come back to the fivefold ministry and let's take it to a deeper level. So here we have in Ephesians chapter 2, starting in verse 9, we're going to learn about what's called the foundation of apostles and prophets. So here we have the apostle Shaul, or Paul, writing to what are called the Ephraimites, which, as we explain in other places, basically are the lost 10 or 12 tribes of Israel. You can read all about that in the Nazarene Israel study, and we have other materials on that on the website. The apostle Shaul, talking to the lost Ephraimites, talking to the lost 10 or 12 tribes, he says, now therefore, you are no longer strangers and foreigners to the nation of Israel. You're no longer strangers and foreigners to the family. He says, but you're now fellow citizens with the saints and with the members of the household of Elohim. So there's various analogies we can use when we're talking about Israel. We can talk about a family. We can talk about a body. We can talk about an olive tree. We can also talk about a living temple. And so here Shaul switches the analogy, and he says that this living temple, built with living stones, is built upon what he calls the foundation of apostles and prophets, with Yeshua Messiah himself being the chief cornerstone. And this is such an important concept, and it's missing from the Messianic movement today. And it's so important because it's what provides for unity. Let's talk about that just a little bit. Now, Yeshua Messiah himself is our chief cornerstone. And what that means is that he is our example. And with a stone building, the weight is immense. So if you're going to have a foundation for a stone building, you effectively have to have an extremely strong foundation. What better foundation and what better connection between the stones can there be when Yeshua is dwelling in the apostles and prophets, and the apostles and prophets are dwelling in Yeshua Messiah because they have that connection. So Yeshua in us and us in him in the Father and the Father in us. And in this way, it's therefore effectively Yeshua's Spirit manifesting and speaking through us. So with the apostles, who also have the gift of understanding the doctrine, providing the direction for the organization, and the prophets who also hear and speak according to Yahweh's voice, then you have the leadership and direction of the organization effectively being given by Yeshua's Spirit. You have the leadership and direction of the organization being given by the Spirit of Elohim. And that's the only way to unite the movement. Because when you build a stone temple, what you need to do is you need to take the stones and you need to arrange them so that you can effectively form a space inside that people can enter in to worship. There needs to be a place for the Spirit of Elohim to dwell inside. And that can't happen unless the stones are properly arranged. And that can't happen unless the foundation is capable of bearing the weight of those stones. So those who have the greater giftings, they don't tend toward the top, as in the Messianic and the Christian ministries. They tend toward the bottom so that they can bear the weight of the rest of the organization. Now, what this requires is that all of the ministers then seek out those who are speaking according to Yahweh's voice. And that's what's not happening today in the Messianic movement. So because, and this is the big problem, because most people don't hear Yahweh's voice, most people don't know to seek out the truth. They don't know to seek out those who are speaking according to Yahweh's voice. And that's why the solution is, as the fivefold ministry says, that we should hear Yahweh's voice and that we should then speak the truth in love, so that those of his sheep who hear his voice will then attract and a true temple can be built. And in this way, the living stones can be arranged to form a space to worship inside. But without that, what you end up with is effectively just a heap of stones. And there's no way there's no space inside for worship. Or you end up with, similar to the Messianic movement today, you have a stone over here and a stone over there, and no connection between them unless they want to get together to sell something. Take a look at another example. If we're talking about an olive tree, Yeshua is the root. So the root doesn't exalt itself. The root isn't over all. The root is actually under all. And you can't see the root. The root is basically not visible because it's down in the dirt performing a critical essential function. Without the root, there's no life to the tree. So what is the root doing? The root is seeking out minerals and nutrients in the soil. The root is seeking out moisture, and it's sending those things up to the rest of the tree. But what you need then is you need something, some part of the tree that can then bear the weight of the rest of the tree on the upper side of the soil. And that's where you get your foundation of apostles and prophets, also called the foundation of apostles and elders. So it's inverted from the Babylonian method. In the Babylonian method, those who are strongest rise to the top. In Yeshua's method, those who are strongest sink down to support the weight and to bear the burdens of the others. And that's the difference. But the only ones who know to join themselves to Yeshua's temple or to Yeshua's olive tree are the ones that are able to hear and obey his voice. And that's why they will always be in the minority, is because it takes discipline and it's hard to do. And we have to seek out the truth. In John or Yohanan chapter 4 and verse 24, still speaking to the woman at the well, Yeshua says, Elohim is spirit, and those who worship him must worship both in spirit, Yeshua's spirit, and in truth. So they have to have the spirit and the truth. They have to have both components. They have to have both the Torah and the testimony. They have to manifest Yeshua's spirit. We need both of those things. So this is what happens all the time is people say, well, I have the spirit and you have the spirit, so we can't possibly have any doctrinal disagreements. But that's the problem, is because even though we and they have the spirit and those people over there have the spirit, even though everyone has the spirit, we all need to submit to the truth. And so that's why the fivefold ministry says we need to speak the truth in love. And through that, when we discipline ourselves to obey the truth, when the minority of us disciplines ourselves to obey the truth, that's when Yeshua's true living temple will be built. Now, this is a difficult word, and we want to say it because it's important to speak the truth in love. We don't want to offend anybody. Our goal is not to upset anyone, but we need to speak the truth in love so that people can begin to understand what the problems are with today's Messianic movement and how to solve them moving forward. So, In Revelation, or Hitgalut, chapter 16 and verse 13, Yohanan or John says he saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs coming out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. So now, if a prophet is someone who speaks he hears Yahweh's voice and speaks according to the things of Elohim. What is a false prophet? A false prophet then is someone who speaks falsely pertaining to the things of Elohim. And what we know about this is that Yahweh's standards are perfectly 100% pure. So if a prophet speaks anything falsely, Yahweh is going to require it of him because he requires that true purity. And this is hard for a lot of people to accept, but it's going to be exceedingly critical as we move forward into these end times and into the tribulation. Consider in Acts or Maaseh, chapter 20 and verse 30, the Apostle Shaul warns us all. He says also, from among yourselves, he's talking about us. Who's he talking about? He says, from among yourselves, men will rise up. Who's he talking about? He says, speaking perverse things. What is a perverse thing? It's something perverse. It's something twisted. It's just a little bit off. And we know that Satan is a counterfeiter. And what does a counterfeiter like to do but to make a counterfeit? He wants to make something that looks as close to the original as possible without actually being the original, because that way it's all the more convincing as a counterfeit. Who are we talking about here? And what is their purpose? It says the purpose is to draw away the disciples after themselves. So what are we really saying here? What we're really saying is that in the end times, Satan is going to have workers who are going to speak perverse things that are just a little bit off. It's not going to be the full truth. It's going to be just a little bit twisted. You're going to get 75, 85, 90, 95% truth, but it's not going to be the full truth, and it's not going to lead to the true desired goal. It's not going to lead to Yeshua's true unified kingdom, to Yeshua's true living temple based upon the foundation of apostles and prophets. Instead, you're going to have a lot of very highly qualified, very knowledgeable teachers who are establishing their own separate independent ministries. You're going to have here a ministry, there a ministry, everywhere a ministry. You're going to have all kinds of ministries all over the place, not operating together upon Yeshua's true foundation of apostles and prophets, but a bunch of separate independent ministries. These are the wolves that Shaul warns us about that will be operating in the end times. I'll let you fill in the names. What does Yahweh say will happen to them? This is a warning to anyone, because I know they happen to study our teachings and take what they like and leave the rest. What Yahweh says in Deuteronomy or Devarim, chapter 18 and verse 20, we're not just talking about foretelling. We're also talking about forthtelling, because both foretelling and forthtelling are both prophecy. He says, but the false prophet who presumes to speak a word in my name, which I have not commanded him to speak, or who speaks in the name of other false Elohim, that prophet shall die. Now, people tend to take this kind of thing, I believe, altogether too lightly. And here's reasons why we should not. So whether we seek to be under shepherds or whether we simply seek to be good sheep, what we need to understand is just how high Elohim's standards truly are, and how developing the gift of prophecy can help us please him. So let's consider, in the Torah calendar study, we talk about mirror imaging in the feasts, and also with regard to the end times and the purification of Israel. So consider, in the feasts of the first month, we have the Pesach, or Passover. And that's an afternoon feast, or what might be called a half-day feast or an event, followed by the 7 days of unleavened bread. Then, by the time we get to the feast of the 7th month, now you have Sukkot, or tabernacles. You have 7 days of dwelling in tabernacles, then followed by a half-day feast in the morning called the 8th great day. So there's effectively a mirror imaging between the feast of the first month and the feast of the 7th month. Consider also, you have early feast fulfillments and end time fulfillments. So in Exodus chapter 12, we saw a sudden exodus from the land of Egypt and then 40 years of purification, where the bones of those who did not measure up to Elohim's standards then dropped in the wilderness, and only those who loved him enough to do things his way, those are the ones who entered into the promised land. Then we have the end times. Now we are in a 40-year time, what might be called 40 years of purification. We expect to see a sudden ingathering coming forth. So if we'll do things Elohim's way, if we'll simply establish that connection with Yeshua, if we'll dwell in him and him in us and him in the Father and the Father in him, and if we'll focus on him and hear his voice and speak according to it, then we're not going to speak heresy. We're not going to do the wrong things. We're not going to establish separate ministries apart from his ministry. We're going to do things that are going to bring the movement together. We're going to establish a single ministry, his, that's founded upon the foundation of apostles and prophets, just like he says. And the key to all of this is to ask for and then develop through discipline the gift of prophecy. And I believe that's why the Apostle Shaul places such emphasis on the gift of prophecy. That's why he tells us to pursue love and desire the good spiritual gifts, but especially that we may prophesy. Because in order to prophesy, we have to establish that connection that was lost in the Garden of Eden. And then we have to hear Yahweh's voice and speak and act according to it. We have to obey Yahweh also through our actions, as he commanded us in Exodus chapter 19. And what this really requires is getting rid of our human lusts and getting rid of our pride. We have to get rid of the lust of our eyes, the lust of our flesh, and our egotism, or our pride. And isn't that what every disciple is supposed to do? So if we're going to prophesy, all we have to do is establish that connection and then listen and then speak according to what we hear without allowing the lust of our eyes, the lust of our flesh, or our pride to interfere and get in the way. And that's what we need to do to please Elohim in the end times. And that's the importance of the two different types of prophecy. Shalom.